The people that haven't gone through their personal, emotional, and psychological process yet and don't understand that a lot of the stuff that they experience is just being rehashed from their past and don't know how to separate themselves from that critical inner voice and the anxiety and all that kind of thing. Like when you're an entrepreneur and you're entangled in all that kind of stuff, it can be horrible. End of October 2019, I have this buddy. He's like, listen, I got some acid. We'll take it at the party. And I said, all right, sure. But I didn't really want to do anything strong. I don't like to I don't want to get too far out there kind of thing. Like I still like to stay grounded. He's like, no, I tested it. It's fine. And I was like, okay, fine, great, no problem. If it's like just a little something, so I did. Turned out it wasn't weak at all. The people that haven't gone through their personal, emotional, and psychological process yet and don't understand that a lot of the stuff that they experience is just being rehashed from their past and don't know how to separate themselves from that critical inner voice and the anxiety and all that kind of thing. Like when you're an entrepreneur and you're entangled in all that kind of stuff, it can be horrible.
Welcome to the Too Dad to Quit podcast.
The podcast where we highlight stories of dads on the other side of divorce.
To inspire and give strength to dads going through it.
I'm Ben.
And I'm Yoel.
Welcome back to the Too Dad to Quit podcast. You can find us on twodadtoquit.com, Too Dad to Quit on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and anywhere else you want to find us. Please reach out to us. We want to share your story. We have the belief that your story can help many, many other people. Please reach out to us. We want to share your story. And don't forget to subscribe, like, share, comment, and get the word out to as many people as possible. Today, we are sitting with Josh Polsky. Josh is originally from St. Louis, Missouri, and has been living in Israel for the last 14 years. He separated in 2019 and has been divorced for almost a year. Josh is dad to 2 children, an 8-year-old daughter and 5-year-old son. Josh is a digital marketer with 23 years of experience, including running his own agency for 8 years, and now heading a niche agency for an Israeli marketing company. Josh also enjoys DJing, hiking, self-improvement, and cooking. So welcome, Josh. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thanks for having me.
So what brought you all the way to Israel from St. Louis? Seems like quite a trip.
You know, I mean, conservative Judaism and so Zionism just always being part of the equation. Whether it was, I went to Schechter until 4th grade and then Hebrew school. I'm a Ramah kid. Came to Israel in college, so it was ever present.
Interesting. Your family also Zionistic and wanting to, are they here or just you?
Not just me, but the importance of Israel was always sort of pumped in, put it that way.
Got it. And you came here single?
Yeah, with my dog.
All right. Dog's still around?
He's not. It's been a few years now.
Sorry to hear.
Yeah, he's waiting for me. It's all good.
Did they take you into the army?
No, I didn't even get the letter saying they didn't want me. I got here when I was 33.
Oh,
so
wow.
There was no, nothing.
Got it. So going backwards, so you grew up in St. Louis, you went to college somewhere?
Yeah,
local?
University of Missouri.
Wow, you were a real local boy.
Totally.
I was in St. Louis.
In-state tuition and all that kind of thing, where it's a quarter of the price of whether if I had had my way, I'd have gone to University of Wisconsin in Madison.
Got it. There was a party school, that one, isn't it?
Huge, the best Halloween you can think of.
Yeah, I definitely remember hearing those stories. I actually was in St. Louis once for a wedding, and it was just, there were 2 things we needed to do while we were there, and one was go up in the arch, yep, and also go to the Budweiser factory. And so the arch was like, it was cool because I'm an architecture guy. I'm obsessed, and I always wanted to be an architect. And going up in that thing, you did not expect to go in an elevator that went up to the left, to the right, to the left, that kind of zigzagged all the way up. Was pretty fascinating. And then I'm also like an adrenaline guy. So once you're up there, everybody's freaking out. And I'm up there and the thing is swaying back and forth. And I'm like, this is the coolest thing I ever did. But
Yeah, it's not going anywhere.
yeah, so that was pretty cool. And then when we went from there to the Budweiser factory, we got a cab, and I was with a bunch of people from New York, and the cab driver was like, I don't know, he could have been riding a horse and buggy. Like he was in no rush to go anywhere. Like in New York, they're like, get in, get out, next fare, next fare. And this guy was just like, hey, so how's it going? Yeah, it's a different speed here. Everything's cool. Don't worry
Yeah.
about it. So those are like the two things that really stuck out to me on my
So that's
trip
the
to St.
beauty of St.
Louis.
Louis is, it's small town. It's a bigger city, but small town kind of atmosphere. People just laid back. It's a good place to raise a family. And, I grew up in the suburbs and I still want to be in the suburbs. I mean, I'm in Rehoboth right now. But I wouldn't mind going somewhere that's just further away from the concrete and the towers and everything like that, whether it's a moshav or what, something where there's just more green and less noise.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I grew up in Jersey, which is technically the Garden State, but most people haven't seen the garden part. But that's where I grew up, and I say all the time, we're wasting the land, and we should be building out and not up. It really it upsets me. And when people are like, "Hey, I bought a house," and it's like a 4-bedroom apartment, like 3, 4, 10 flights up, and you're like, "What is this? Like, where do the kids go?" So it's I hear you 100%.
Yeah, if we could just figure out how to sustainably integrate our living needs into into the existing, instead of like flattening everything and you know tearing everything out, how do we just like sort of like integrate ourselves into it, kind of like Middle Earth. I would live in a Hobbit house. I would totally live in one of those houses. Those things are amazing. Give me a 4-bedroom underneath a hill.
Well, don't joke. I think it's in Morocco or Egypt. I'm totally blanking. The place where they launch all the hot air balloons, well, like once
Okay.
or twice a year. But there's like a whole city of houses inside the side of a mountain built. They didn't touch the landscape at all, and they just built inside, and it's tunnels and tunnels and tunnels. Um, but they just in Masada, they just opened like a side cliff tour. And actually, I have from my vlog, one of my videos, I put up the drone because it was not open to the public and I didn't have any clue about it, that there were actually caves on the side of the mountain as well, where they found a bunch of bones and people and things like that. So they
Interesting.
just opened it. So it has been done. It's not a new thing. There's actually one of the national parks called Big Guvrin, and it's got cave after cave after cave where you intertwined underground systems where you can go in. It makes sense because it's a crazy climate.
Yeah.
So
Actually, funny that you mentioned Beit Guvrin. Um, that was where like the seed of my separation was sort of planted.
uh-huh.
It was a long time coming, but so I'm a deadhead, and we had a party like up on top. There were some people that lived in a kibbutz right nearby, and we put on like a nature party, but Grateful Dead. Um, and I had I had taken some acid. I had been in therapy before that for probably at least a year, just like to help me cope with what it was like being in my relationships, and it was really really hard for me. So end of October 2019, I have this buddy. He's like, "Listen, I got some acid. We'll take it at the party." And I said, "All right, sure," but I didn't really want to do anything strong. I don't like to I don't want to get too far out there kind of thing. Like I still like to stay grounded. He's like, "No, no, I tested it. It's fine." And I was like, "Okay, fine. Great. No problem. If it's like just a little something." So I did. Turned out it wasn't weak at all. It was really strong because my friend was on antidepressants at the time, and antidepressants suppress the effects of
Uh-huh.
LSD in the brain. And you forgot to mention that part. So the LSD was really strong, but it wasn't. It wasn't. It was like uncomfortable for maybe like the first 45 minutes to an hour, and after that, all of these things just started clicking in my head. Things that I had been learning about myself, things that I had been learning in therapy, like things just started to crystallize. Um, and so I had people pleasing tendencies and I cared what other people thought about me. And that's why I got in a relationship with my ex-wife in the first place because I didn't think I could do any better, all other kind of stuff. And I had these just these flashes, these epiphanies the entire time and things just coming together. And I actually had two tracks in my head that were sort of going simultaneously. One was if someone's not into me, F them. Who cares? Not like in a bad way. Not like, they can go, go jump on, which is like, if they're not into me, okay, fine, whatever. That's fine. And so, we have been having Grateful Dead parties for a long time. And I remember like I would go to these and my brain would always be like, if I was with someone at the time, what is going on with her? What is she thinking? Or if I wasn't with someone, I would maybe be thinking about like, I need to get someone's phone number and all that kind of stuff. And always, always thinking about how like someone else is sort of affecting me. But at this party in Guvrin, I just walked off by myself. I would go out by myself for like, half hour, 40 minutes, hour at a time and just walk. I knew that everything was safe because behind me I could see the lights of the party. And it was really, really peaceful. And just all these different things started clicking. Interestingly, the other thing that started also clicking was like one of the things that my ex-wife was really good at is like applying herself to things. She's very, I lose my English sometimes. Missimati, right? She's very like
Driven.
yeah, that's one of the ways to put it. So I was like, I've seen the way that she applies herself to other things, like with our kids and with work and whatever. And we had gone to therapy, but it hadn't worked. But something in my mind was like, I believe in her, right? I went back after, so the party was great. I went back after the party. I told her about everything, and I told her, I'm like, I know you. I've seen what you've done in other parts of your life. There's no reason why we shouldn't be able to make it work here also. Because I was always trying. I was in therapy. We had gone to couples therapy. Like I was always pushing for it. And so, things were good between us for about 2 weeks. And then out of nowhere, she's just like, I kind of feel like that whole, the way that you came back is kind of gone, right? She started confronting me and doing this other stuff. And I'm just like, okay. So I went back to the one track, which was like, if you're not into me, that's it.
Yeah.
And about, I would say, maybe a week later, I told her I wanted to separate. So, about 2 or 3 weeks from the time that I had been at that party in Beit Guvrin, everything just clicked, and I was no longer afraid to tell her that I wanted to get divorced.
Wow. And did you take anything after that? Or that was like the pinnacle? You were good? You sorted out what you needed to sort it out? Or did you take any more acid or
Well, I
anything?
mean, not to sort anything out, but just because I went to more Grateful Dead parties. But like, no, I was sorted. Like when it came to um, when it came to, I already knew what I needed to know, right? It was like just a picture of a puzzle that's not yet put together. And suddenly that night on Baker Green just put all those pieces of the puzzle together, and I just saw everything now. Instead of being reminded about a piece here and a piece there, I saw the entire picture put together.
Wow. Yeah, I actually just read something that Congress is in the middle of pushing for treatment using psychedelics for soldiers in PTSD.
Sure, ketamine, ecstasy, all that stuff. Sure.
Yeah, and as part of the expose, they said that Elon Musk came out recently and said that he started microdosing ketamine to deal with his depression and things like that.
Sure.
But the big, the pundits, they're, it's a sketchy place to be. Like, it's not mainstream, it's not crazy, but it's
Right.
somewhere in between. So the pundits kind of, their point was, people are taking oxy, and I'm not a drug person, but taking lots of different things that are being prescribed. So why not look at natural ways to do it? And you can be on those drugs for years and maybe you'll get better. But with psychedelics, it seems like it's either 1 or 2 sessions with a professional there that need like a ton of the weight and the clarity and all of that stress and trauma is resolved. And
Yeah,
from your story, it sort of sounds the same. Like that one experience gave you such clarity. Would you agree with that?
absolutely. I think that, so it's interesting because, when you're tripping, the senses get blended, right? It opens up things in your mind that, I mean, to me, they're already there, right? But it drops it helps drop the facade that you carry with you, your personas, and lets whatever's inside just come out. And that also includes fears and all that other kind of stuff. Like people talk about having bad trips and things. To me, the bad trip really comes when you have things that are unresolved inside, and whatever it is that you're taking just opens up and let it go. Now, obviously, sometimes if you take something that's too strong, it'll just wreak havoc on your brain, and that will cause a bad trip too. But I remember in college, um, we went to a rave, and we did ecstasy at a rave, and that was just for fun, right? But then afterwards, oh, we're really smart. We ate some mushrooms. It's like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and we decided to eat mushrooms. And I just remember I have this one buddy who was like, everyone was kind of off doing their own thing, and he was just like, nobody wants to talk to me. And it's not that it's true, but there are certain things about him that are a little bit too much, right? And so sometimes people would come, but not get necessarily too close for too long because he just has this certain kind of personality. And so, like, the psychedelics will bring it out. Something that I actually proposed to my ex-wife before we got divorced is I said to her, let's go do MDMA therapy. First of all, it's awesome. Like, it feels good, right? So there's just like you said, the pundits, they have a thing with there's the stigma that goes with psychedelics and that goes with some of those drugs, but it's only things that the government, like stigmas that the government or religion, mainly Christianity, has like attached to say that those things are bad, right? But they're not really that. They're not bad. Like if you do it in a way that's supposed to be constructive, like why is LSD or ketamine or something like that still illegal when alcohol, which is one of the most destructive, you can buy it anywhere, right? So it's just what kind of labels have we attached to that stuff?
Yeah. Wow. And so you being a deadhead, you know, how do you define that for yourself? Is that going back, 30 years? Is that
Yeah,
how
so
did,
I actually used to like quote unquote hate the dead, but it was really just the deadheads. Before I really knew the music, I'm just like, these people are so annoying. Shut up already, right? And then because I had friends that were deadheads since, you know, when I was in Camp Ramah, obviously there's a whole thing about like Jews and Grateful Dead and Fish and just jam bands, like the scene. There's like a disproportionate amount of us that are in that scene. And so at Camp Ramah, most of my friends were heads. And at first I was like, I wish you guys would shut up. But then when we went to Israel in '93, and we would go out, like, we stayed at this place in Jerusalem called the Chava, and there was a big tennis court there. So someone would just, bring out a radio or, a Discman and some portable speakers, and we go to the tennis court and just stare at the moon and the stars, and listen to the Dead. So that's when I first started getting into the Dead. So that was '93. Wow, it's 30 years ago. Yeah, 30 years ago. And then that was just like my first, like, sort of getting into it. And then when I got back to the States, um, I had a couple buddies in high school that were deadheads. And then it just, and then I went to college. And when I was in Israel again in college, uh, my suite mate was a major deadhead and just had cases of tapes. So I went to University of Missouri. He went to Kansas. When we got back, we would go visit each other. And I remember one time I get to his place, and he started becoming like a real sound quality snob, and he just had cases and cases of tapes. He's like, take whatever you want from that stack over there. And I remember I went home with like 90 shows, I had this gigantic Case Logic, padded thing with the slots,
Yeah.
and you put the tapes, and I had that thing, and I went back to my fraternity. I was AE Pi, right? And I went back to my fraternity, and there was also heads in the house, and just from there, like it like really took. Um, and then, I saw them once in '94. One of my the friend that I told you about that I have in high school, we went and we saw them in St. Louis in '94. And then I was at Camp Vermont when Jerry died, and there were so many sad people, and they were just playing like dead on the camp radio the entire time. Um, and then after I graduated, I went and I saw, actually, no, you know what? In '97, '96 or '97. So my rabbi is a deadhead too. He's in Israel now.
Nice.
Um, yeah, so he and I went to Further Festival, which was like a year or two after Jerry died, and the guys were all like, "Okay, let's start doing some music again." And each of them had their own bands, right? Plus Mo and like Blues Traveler and stuff like that, right? So there was Further Festival for a couple of years, and I went one year with my rabbi, and so we're walking around outside, and there's just people just getting high and I'm like, it was like '96, so I'm like 20, right? I'm still really, really young and still naive, and it's weird for me to be walking around uh, essentially a dead show with my rabbi. People getting high everywhere. My rabbi is looking at like glass pieces laid out on the blankets and stuff. But at some point, it got totally cool, and then we went in, and he's like all dancing, and I'm dancing, and it was really fun. And then saw all the different iterations of the Dead for however many years after that.
Wow. So did you go to any more concerts, festivals? You did the whole scene?
I did. So I went to all the Further festivals. I saw them. So then they called themselves the Other Ones because the Other One is a Dead song. So they called themselves the Other Ones for a while. That was maybe 2 years, and I saw them in Alpine Valley for that. And then they were just the Dead, which was everybody back except for Jerry, obviously. And I saw that a few times. And then in 2019, just before Corona, in like June, I went back to the States to visit, and I saw Dead and Company at Wrigley Field.
Wow.
And then actually here, so there's a significant amount of deadheads in Israel. There's actually two communities. There's like the religious American deadheads, and then you have actually the Israeli deadheads who somehow got infected by somebody else. Uh, and we have festivals. So there's actually a nonprofit like association, an Amutah, called Grateful Music,
Huh.
and we have events. I DJ with them. I do their marketing. I do all the Facebook campaigns for all the different events. Um, we have a big festival in the summer that takes place in the desert. We have a smaller one in Tel Aviv in the winter. It's our winter party. We have something. So there's the date of Jerry's birth and the date of his death is like August. It's like one day in early August and then a day in mid August, right? So on what Jewish holiday is in, what do they call it?
Love.
Beina Meitavim. What's that thing? Something like that, right? It's like a Jewish holiday. What Jewish holiday is in August?
There's Tisha B'Av.
That's what it is. Not holiday, but Tisha B'av, right? And so there's like a certain amount of days or whatever. It's
The
called
three
Bein.
weeks. The 3 weeks.
Yes, that.
Got
So
it.
Jerry. So they celebrate Jerry in English speaking countries, and they call it Days Between, because Days Between is also a dead zone. So they call it Days Between, which is the stretch of time, and there's always a celebration. Every day on the radio, there's something. Here, we call it Bein HaMeitarim, which is between the strings, right? And so we also have a festival somewhere in the north where we get together, we DJ. There'll be live music, and then we DJ just songs from all the different shows, and so yeah, so that's what we have here. It's called Grateful Music, and we have events like 4 or 5 times a year.
Cool. And so how did you get into the DJing? That was a college thing?
No, not at all. It was a Dead thing, actually. So the story behind me even meeting Deadheads is I was at a trance festival on the Kinneret Indigo Festival in like 2000 and maybe like 12. We're talking like trance, right? So Man with No Name, uh, Juno Reactor, like that stuff. but everyone's asleep at like 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. All the DJs are still sleeping because the party went till like 5 or 6 in the morning, right?
Right.
So no trance music, no nothing. But there's an area where there's supposed to be live music, but it was all tents and everything like that. So there wasn't any music that was happening. But I walk past this area and I hear the Dead. I'm like, what? So I started asking people. I'm like, "Is this you? Is this you? Is this you?" Like, no, no, no. And then they point to some dude over there, and I saw him. It was him and his wife and his daughter, and maybe like their baby. And there's Dead coming from their tent. I just went and I just sat down with them, and I started talking. We've been friends ever since. So in 2019, so about a month and a half after I had split up with my ex, there was Winter Party, and they asked me if I wanted to DJ, and I said sure. So that was my first taste of DJing. Was at a Grateful Dead party in Tel Aviv.
Hmm.
That was really fun, and then I've been doing it for them ever since. And now I actually do it myself. So at Hudna in Florentine, we have Grateful Dead night every couple of months, and it's my thing, and I DJ, and it's actually coming up in a couple of weeks. So that's how I do it. And I also DJ hip hop sometimes if I can find something, but like old school hip hop in Israel is it's really niche, and to get enough people to come out to warrant actually throwing an event takes a lot of effort. I did one time at Hudna, not that many people came out, and then I did it at a bar in Rishon, and I'd like to do it again. I just haven't really found anywhere where I could actually have an old school hip hop party in Israel or Tel Aviv.
So I have two questions for you. One, do you have
Yeah.
a DJ name?
Uh, kind of like Polskarama. Like
Wow.
so my first friends in Tel Aviv were Brits, and one of them, she was like Polskarama in her English voice. And so I was like, I kind of like that. I'll use that sometimes. So like sometimes when I DJ hip hop, it's Polskarama, and sometimes when I do that stuff, it is. But usually I'm just like just DJ Polsky.
Okay. And my second question is, how does a Dead DJ, like, are you mixing or is it just deciding which songs are going to play straight?
Right. So the Dead played like I think it was 1,500 shows or 2,100 shows or something like that, right? So basically, I figure out what song I want to play, and then I listen to. So there's a website called Heady Version,
Okay.
and you put in the song that you want, and then people like upvote songs, right? So I'll start there. Like I'll say, okay, I want to play Saint Stephen. So I go to Heady Version and I type in Saint Stephen. And I see like which ones people said that they like him. So I'll start listening to those. But I have a buddy here, my friend Mike, who has just like terabytes of music, and I have about a terabyte and a half that he gave me.
Wow.
So I'll search in there too, and I'll just know like, all right, I want to play this song. I'm gonna go listen to, I don't know, 10 or 15 versions until I find the one that I want to play. And so I build my set list like that. There's like a little bit of mixing, not it's more like curating.
Okay. Got it. I mean, that
Yeah,
makes
it's not like
sense.
hip hop, and you're actually making the songs flow from one to the other.
And you're not up there, you know.
Maybe sometimes, if the crowd is pumped enough.
Cool. So have you passed this love of Dead's music to your kids?
Yeah, I mean, they request songs, so that makes me really happy. Like,
That's
I'm
not
gonna play
bad.
Shakedown Street, and I'm like, oh, no problem.
That's not bad. We actually had like it's called like rockabye or rock-a-lullaby,
Okay.
something like that. And there were definitely Dead songs on there, but it's without the words.
Hmm.
So it's just the music used turned into lullaby songs.
I know
So
that stuff. Yeah.
yeah, so we definitely had that, which I'm sure had an impact.
Yeah. My kids actually have asked me multiple times, like, when can we come DJ with you? And I'm like, well, when it's during the day. For now, when it's during the day, because I'm usually the late set.
Now you get to DJ the birthday parties.
Yep. I'm into it. I'll do it for sure.
Awesome. Uh, so uh, so you're DJing, you're marketing, you were marketing um, since college. Was that always your field, or did
No,
you wiggle your way there?
Yeah, it just sort of happened. I was a poli-sci major, and I actually wanted to be a lobbyist for Israel. But if you want to be a lobbyist for Israel, you have to go to Washington, D.C. and work for peanuts. And
Yeah.
that was just not in the cards. I probably should have checked that first, but whatever. Like back when I was in college, it was just go to school, get a degree, get a job, right?
Yep.
But actually, it was that was sort of like the beginning phases of that not really being reality anymore. Is
Yep.
when I came out of college, that unless you're getting a master's or you're going to be a lawyer or a doctor or something like really specific, that whole get a degree and get a job thing was fizzling quickly. And
100%.
so uh, my dad was in real estate and he had a client that had a consulting firm. And so I went and worked worked the front desk at this consulting firm. I took some classes in HTML and CSS and DHTML and ASP. And then a guy who my dad was in youth group with in what was the youth group? Not NCSY or USY. Was
USY.
BBYO. In BBYO, because I was in USY. In BBYO, I think um, AZA. That's what they called it when they were kids, right? It was AZA. So he had a bowling shirt company in St. Louis called bowlingshirt.com. And my dad ran his name was Alan. And my dad ran into Alan, and I grew up with Alan's son, Robbie. So like we were in Hebrew school together, and then went to elementary all the way through high school together. And so Alan and my dad are talking, and Alan says to my dad, he's like, "Yeah, we're building this new website." So they had this new line of shirts called Bowling Bombshells, which were pinup girls that they were putting on bowling shirts, and he needed someone to build the site. And my dad is like, "Well, you should talk to Josh." And so I worked, and so that was like that was probably the middle of 2000. I had worked at the consulting firm for not too long because the conditions weren't amazing. And the guy that owned it was actually not nice at all and was a total like liar. Like he would say things and then the next day he'd be like, I never said that. So I was like, okay, time to go. And it just worked out perfectly. And I got that job and I built this website at bowlingshirt.com. The only thing I didn't do was make the actual graphics. But I put the site, I made this drag and drop uh, uh, where you could like this bowling shirt, like this with the ASP,
Customize.
you could yeah, exactly. You could see like you could drag the pinup girl that you wanted, you could choose what bowling shirt you wanted to see it on, and I wrote all the content. So that was like my first foray into it, and then I, other steps along the way, and then I got to Israel and I started doing marketing here in Israel, and then I started my own company with a buddy who at the time was here, and then he's since moved back to Canada. But we had a marketing company, and for 8 years, I did marketing. I had my own marketing company in Canada.
Cool. So you had the agency for 8 years. What happened there?
Uh, a few things. First of all, being an independent American in Israel is extremely uh, difficult and expensive. And you know, for the first few years, I was a sole proprietor, right? Osek Moshe. And something that my accountant at the time didn't understand was that I'm going to get double taxed on Social Security. So I actually, for 3 years, got taxed on Social Security or it was actually 2 years, that somehow slipped by those 2 years. And then the third year was just like, I actually just didn't have the money to pay off that debt. And it's actually growing right now. And I need to figure out what I'm going to do about it. So the way around that is to incorporate, and then I pull a salary from that company. But that's also expensive, right? So just for bookkeeping and uh, um, uh, accountants is like another 1,500 shekels a month before taxes, right? So not to mention the extra Social Security tax that I have to pay both as an employer and as an employee, and it just became so ridiculous for a salary. Like at the end of the month, I would maybe see half of the salary that I was pulling from Canada, and it became so much of a headache that it just wasn't worth it. So that's part of it. The other part is I actually got into the relationship with my business partner and with my ex-wife at the same time. And when I look back, that was definitely an omen is the wrong word, but there was something going on God and the universe were showing me something. I had to get into those two relationships in order to make it to the other side, to become like to become the person that I am now, people pleasing and all that kind of stuff. And so I had to experience these two different types of relationships with people that were also dysfunctional at the same time to help me understand my own so that I could break that cycle and not pass it on to my kids. And so my relationship with my business partner actually lasted longer than that with my ex-wife because he's a good guy. Like I like him, right? And I still want to be friends with him. But we were not compatible as business partners. And I had to go through that as well to understand that, okay, I need to go be on my own and do my own thing. And so in January, this January, I sold my part of my business back to him and had started looking for a job. It was a horrible, horrible time to look for a job too, because the global job market and economy just went into the tank.
Right.
And all of the money that I got from the sale of my business floated me because as an independent, I don't get unemployment. So
Right.
my sale of my business was my unemployment, basically.
Wow.
Yeah.
So now you're DJing. You have a good marketing job now, right?
Okay. Yeah, that's all right.
Good. Um, and so you said you also have hobbies like hiking and cooking.
Yeah.
Are you giving them any attention, or are they just things you, in theory, want to do?
No, I try. So in Rehoboth, close to where I live, like really 5, 7 minute walk tops. There's just like this gigantic nature. I don't know. Part of it's a nature preserve, actually. I don't know if the entire thing is, but it's this huge tract of land. I mean, gigantic. So I take walks back there all the time. There's trees, there's paths, there's farms back there, and just to like go clear my head. Sometimes when I want to go do something different with my kids, I'll try and take them somewhere. My daughter's more into it right now. My son is still at the part where he's like, if he's walking for more than 10 minutes, he's starting to complain. So, or 5 minutes sometimes too, right? But I do want to, I mean, there's so much cool stuff, even though this place is so tiny. There's so many cool little places. I took them camping a week and a half ago in Afziv. Now, had I known it was going to be that packed, I would not have taken them
Sure.
because the last time I went to Afziv was in 2010. Not the last time I went, but last time I went camping in Afziv was 2010. It was me and I had this Mexican girlfriend at the time. It was like the weekend before she was leaving, and we went camping in Afziv. And I can't say with 100% certainty we were the only ones there. There couldn't have been more than 5 other people anywhere. This last weekend,
Yeah.
there was probably somewhere between 750 and 1,000 people there. If I had known that, I wouldn't have gone. But at the same time, we went camping. They went in the water. We went swimming in the water at Achziv, which is really, really nice, and it's shallow so that they can walk and be comfortable there. So that was nice. And, I just try and go like just being outside because as a digital marketer, I'm in front of my computer all the time,
Yeah.
and I also slightly addicted to my phone screen as much as I try to not be. So when I can tell myself, all right, time to go, just put on my my trail shoes and just go somewhere, to get out of get out of the house, get away from the computer. Uh, and I've seen some cool. You mentioned I don't know if it's Beit Guvrin. You're talking about caves. Maybe it is. Are you talking about like those gigantic,
So
big, huge
there's
white
the Bell Caves, which
that?
are that's in Bakerville also as well.
Yeah,
And then they also have like the Pigeon Caves and the tunnels. They have like kind of two sections.
I took my kids there. Um, Also, Tel Gezer is not that far from
Yeah.
here, so I've
Yeah.
taken them there. Sometimes we just drive because we're in the Shvela, right? We're not Merkaz anymore, so you can actually drive for 10 or 15 minutes and
Yeah.
just be somewhere. So there's like a lot of moshavim that are around here. Sometimes we'll just go and park and just like start walking around there. I'm not that far from Ya'ar Ben Shemen.
Yep.
I'm not that far from, which is also close to Ya'ar Ben Shemen, Tel Hadid. So there's places around here to go that aren't that far. Or even if I just want to go to the beach and not be in the Merkaz, I can drive 30 minutes to the beach in Ashdod, so like, or, Palmachim has the
Yeah,
estuary of Palmachim. So there's no shortage.
yeah, there's definitely an advantage to living in a country that's the size of New Jersey.
Yeah.
Everything's within reach, and I found I follow all the Facebook groups for all the hiking in this country, and
Hiking in
somebody
the Holy Land?
yeah, and there's other ones as well, and somebody posted that there was a natural spring with like 6 feet deep. They have like a built-in. They made like a diving board, like a couple of big pieces of wood, so you can jump in, and it's 10 minutes from the house. So I was there twice this week with first with the little kids, and then the little kids came back and were like, "This is the coolest place ever." So then my son went. So now my goal is to get my oldest to go also. But yeah,
Send me a link.
yeah, we'll do. The video should be up this week,
Cool.
which is part of the my YouTube channel. My other YouTube channel is showing all the local spots because Israel is a big tourist spot, but there's so many local cool attractions that nobody goes to. That
Yeah.
because as far as tourist wise, but it's just a beautiful country. There's national parks everywhere. There's national parks no one knows about. I've got the yearly national park pass, which you go twice and it pays itself off. So there's some. So I've got like one adult plus 3+ children. So mine is less than $100. So yours will be even
Awesome.
less. Yeah, awesome. And then there's things like going down the main highway from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. There's a national park to the right, but on the left, there's another natural spring that people like thousands of cars drive by a day and have no clue. And they just recently put up picnic tables. They covered it. It's shallow, so kids from all ages can go. So there's everywhere. So yeah, you're 100% right. Definitely, if you're into hiking outdoors, too many people have no idea.
Yeah.
They just go to work, they come home, they sit in their house, and to me, it's just a shame. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to get.
You mentioned your YouTube channel. I think that, something that after we had our conversation, what was it, like a month ago already that we
Yeah.
did something like that?
Sounds right.
I've been thinking about side hustle. Like I'm trying to figure out, all right, like where do I belong? Because, living in Israel, this place is insanely expensive, and you just have to, unless you're one of those people that's in high tech with like a really good job in high tech that's paying a whole bunch of money, like you kind of have to sort of like claw your way along, right? And so I'm trying to figure out, something that I checked out. I saw a couple of YouTube videos from this one guy who does print on demand shirts and coffee mugs and stuff on Etsy, and he uses, obviously he uses what's it called, Midjourney, right?
Yeah.
To create the designs for that kind of stuff. And so I was thinking, maybe that, but I also have an idea, as an entrepreneur, and being in these like online, especially for online marketers, the lifestyle can be like, if you don't find that sweet spot, if you don't figure out how to make things work as well as possible, nothing is 100%. Obviously, nothing is black and white. Like it's either not working or working amazing. Obviously, there's the full spectrum, but it can be so stressful and if you don't have a support system for that, like my ex-wife, I can't even count how many times she told me that I should just quit my company and go find something else. And I entertained the idea. I remember, I used to look for jobs, but I didn't have anyone that could like be behind me. So I think to myself, and I know that there's therapists and there's coaches and stuff that are for like entrepreneurs, but I'm thinking to myself, maybe even, a forum for online marketing entrepreneurs that maybe at some point I could figure out how to monetize, but like something, because I also don't want to be in front of a computer for the rest of my life. Like I'd rather be a therapist. If I could take my desire to be a therapist and understand and get certification of some kind with my experience of being an online marketing entrepreneur and combine that, like,
Sure.
there's a lot of people that need help because it is so stressful, and there are people that you know the people that haven't gone through their personal emotional and psychological process yet and don't understand that a lot of the stuff that they experience is just being rehashed from their past and don't know how to separate themselves from that critical inner voice and the anxiety and all that kind of thing. Like when you're an entrepreneur and you're entangled in all that kind of stuff, it can be horrible. Like it can really, really be horrible life when you think to yourself, what if my clients all go away next month? I'm screwed. Like I don't have like I don't have a safety net. I don't have and with COVID, when COVID hit, so many people went online marketing. Right now, everyone and their mom thinks they're an online marketer. And I'm sure, they'll all get filtered out at some point. But at the same time, it can be a really, really horrible, lonely lifestyle when you think you're by yourself trying to make ends meet and no one's buying, or you're not getting any responses to your outreach, or your campaigns aren't working. You're like, well, fuck, man, what am I going to do? I'm going to sink or swim. And so if I just need to take action, right? Like I just need to just do it and make a form and just start. And I can, and I will. And I'll probably do the Etsy thing too. Although I would want a VA to help me with the Etsy thing, just to make all my drawings and do the upload, or to upload everything and take care of all the busy work.
Yeah.
But I think those are probably the two things that I'm gonna get into at some point, and then in the very near future, because we need it here, right? Like if you, like I said, if you don't have that high tech job that's paying you 30 or 40K per month, this place is heavy.
Right. Yeah.
How do you do it?
I don't sleep. I don't sleep, and I don't know. I also wrote a children's book about patience. So, as I tell people, I wrote the book on patience. So, slow and steady.
Nice one.
When I was a kid, one of my favorite books was The Little Engine That Could.
Sure. Still read that.
Yep. So there is no not doing. You'll eventually get there.
Yeah.
But there's an NLP course. Have you heard of NLP? And I don't
I'm familiar with it.
Yeah, so that might be something that you can use, because I know people use NLP for coaching. So, and you can get a certification in that, relatively straightforward, as opposed to going all the way to back to school. That may be a route. I can connect you with somebody who's done it that you might know.
Sure.
So,
actually, if I could afford it, I would totally go back to school.
Yeah, I'm not a school person.
You do it. Man, that'd be such a nice break from the grind. Oh, I have class today. Awesome.
Yeah, I think that.
What are you doing today? I got a final.
Yeah, I don't. To me, life is enough tests that I don't need anymore. Especially when someone else is judging. I don't need that.
I mean, if we're talking about getting certified so that you can charge somebody, like legally charge, and also to have the I don't think I would necessarily want to go back and get like a psych degree or something like that, because I also know the stuff that I've been through, the different types of therapy that I had. I mean, for me, that's education enough. I know that I can help anybody through, emotional spirals and the flashbacks and all that kind of stuff. Like I can help there, and trauma and whatever. But if you want to make a living off of it, in this country, you have to have. I mean, it's better to have a certification. Let's put it that way.
Sure, absolutely. There are enough courses out there, but I know NLP is one of the more official ones than, some random coaching course that no one knows about.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So I'll send you some stuff after
please.
After this.
Sure.
So about your kids. So would you say, your relationship with your kids have been the same the whole way through? They were little. They were super little when
things were bad, right? So don't forget, my divorce, actually, the first year of my divorce took place in the first year of COVID. And so that was miserable. That was utterly miserable. And I mean, I can't say I took it out on them. I was just, we were all taking it all out on each other. and it was just a bad situation, and they had to be around a person that wasn't balanced, two people that weren't balanced. Now, my daughter, um, she was 4 when it first started, and my son was 1. So she was also around when there was yelling and when there was fighting, and he was a baby. That's not to say that he didn't absorb it, subconsciously or through whatever ways that people that don't understand English can still absorb, right? So he took some too. Like, I'm not to take away from that, but my daughter understood things. And I think that she blamed me for a while. My relationship with her was really, really rocky, even before the divorce. And then after the divorce, it was not, it wasn't good for a couple years. But over the last few years, I think as a reflection of the work that I've done on myself, that I was able to open up more to her and to them, them generally and her specifically, that the relationship between us is now, I mean, it's way better. She still needs help. I think she definitely needs therapy, but I mean, it's night and day, the difference between, what it was like a couple years ago and what it's like now.
That's great. And
Yeah.
when do you see your kids? What's your schedule?
Every Monday and Thursday, and then every other weekend.
Got it. All right.
Yeah.
Nice. Pretty standard.
There's a book by Pete Walker called CPTSD From Surviving to Thriving. And in it, there's like, he talks about the abandonment that you face, from dysfunctional parents, right? And so my parents were not there for me at all. Emotionally, like, I had bullies when I was growing up. They didn't do anything about it. Like, I was like just like left to the wolves kind of thing. And so no one ever defended me. And there's this recurring theme in the book where he talks about you need to be your biggest defender no matter what, even if you hurt someone else in the process. Not saying that you should, but first and foremost, think about yourself. And if you hurt someone else in the process, then you can go back and you can apologize and you can,
right,
make it right. But first thing first, worry about yourself, defend yourself. And so, and that was not a natural thing for me at all. Like, I never knew how to do that because no one ever did it for me. And so, over the past few years, I've learned that, yeah, I'll stand up for myself, and I would stand up for myself, like, when I was younger and people maybe were messing with me. But in terms of, do I actually feel it? Like, if I was physically threatened, I would stand up for myself, right?
right.
But when it's just like sort of a, like a non-physical thing, but that you still need to defend yourself, I didn't necessarily know how to do it.
I hear you. I definitely hear you. And speaking of your kids, this is the Too Dad to Quit podcast. So we like our guests to share with our listeners Too Dad to Quit moment, the moment when you were like proudest as a dad, you watched this happen or something happened and you just feel like the pride go straight to your face and you just smile anytime somebody asks you. This is the story that comes to mind.
Well, I would say anytime my kids ask me to listen to the Grateful Dead, that happens. But other than that, I think with my daughter, there's not really one story so much. It's more like she's really, really talented. She's really artistic. Like, I look at the stuff that she does, and I'm just like, every time anew, I'm just like, I can't believe this little person put out something that looks like that. Like, really, really good. And every time I see her make a drawing, I'm just like, wow, like, she's half mine. With my
Awesome.
son, um, he, I like, I mean, because he's just 5, so I'm still watching him develop and grow. I mean, she is too, obviously, but her personality, she's been her personality's been separating itself already from to becoming her own person, where his is just really kind of starting. But what I like to see is sometimes when we're out and we're going hiking and he's not complaining because he like takes the lead, and he's 5.
Yeah.
He's like, and he just starts walking. I'm like, and he's like, but where are we going? I'm like, I don't know, man. I'm behind you. I'm following you. And you can see he's just going wherever it is that he wants to go, and it doesn't really matter. And he's in charge. And so when he's doing that, that makes me like I'm happy he's now also starting to become his own person.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And the last thing we like to leave our listeners with is some advice, tips that you would give to anyone who's, thinking about divorce, going through divorce, on the other side of divorce, something maybe you would have wanted someone to tell you, at some point.
Don't be afraid. Like, so many of us, or I'll just speak for myself, it was more comfortable for me to be in a bad relationship than the prospect of being alone and not being in one. And for those people that think, well, maybe he or she is the best I can do, if you're not happy, you can definitely do better. Even if being alone means better.
Wow. So thank you, Josh. Really appreciate you coming on. And This has been the Too Dad to Quit podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And we'll see you next week.
This podcast provides a platform for our guests to express their own personal views and opinions. Some or all of these views and opinions may not be shared by Ben and or Yoel.
Thank you for listening to the Too Dad to Quit podcast. Available at toodadtoquit.com. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode.